In 1933, the Nazi Party seized power in Germany. But for Hitler, power was only a beginning. Should we form a chosen band, he asked a friend, made up of those who really know? An order, a brotherhood of the Knights of the Holy Grail, around the Holy Grail of the pure blood. The eternal life provided by the Grail is valid only for the truly pure and noble.
Dietrich Eckhardt, Willi Dreyer, Horst Hoffmann.
In time, only the greatest criminals are remembered. The little men, those who helped the crime along its way, escape behind the crackle of history.
Albert Leo Schlageter.
This is Landsberg Castle in Bavaria. For a year in the early 20s, Adolf Hitler was a prisoner here. This is where he wrote Mein Kampf, the Bible of the Nazi Party, Hitler's dream for the future of the master race. History records that here, the greatest criminal planned the greatest crime. But there were many others, now forgotten, who gave to Hitler's fantasies the seal of intellectual and scientific approval.
Albert Müller.
It was professors from the universities, together with the Nazis, who piped the German people on a doomed journey through their own worst imaginings. A journey through a landscape of myth and legend, which reached from Atlantis to the castle of the Holy Grail. A quest into history to reveal the special destiny of the German race.
Walter Apelt.
Today, in the same beer kellers which were the engine rooms of the Nazi movement, enthusiastic audiences can share something of the authentic German experience. But for most of the 20th century, the search for what is truly German has come at a higher price.
In 1945, Hitler was dead and Landsberg Castle had become war crimes prison number 1. Among the prisoners was an SS officer called Wolfram Sievers. Sievers had been in charge of an SS organization whose job was to use history and archaeology to prove the claims of the master race, whose task was to explore the greatness of the German soul. Before his execution, Sievers told his Allied interrogators an astonishing story, a story which ended in genocide, but which began in a search for Atlantis and the Holy Grail. In 1933, when the Nazis came to power, the special destiny of the Germans was an idea whose time had come. Moreover, it was an idea that was underwritten by science. At that time, archaeology was still a new science, and the Germans were the masters. From Troy to Babylon, their excavations had recovered lost pasts and written new chapters for the human race. They had also been able to prove the truth of ancient myths. And now their archaeologists turn their attention to the origins of the Germans themselves. In the 19th century, European scholars had come to believe that the Northern Europeans belonged to a superior racial group. They called them Indo-Europeans or Aryans. In 1902, the archaeologist Gustav Cassiner used the new science to prove that the early Germans were the original Aryans.
Gustav Cassiner was a very serious archaeologist, and he published his first article on the subject, I think, in 1902, and there was nothing racist about it at all. He was making the equation which many archaeologists made, that if we're talking about the Proto-Indo-European language, that would have been spoken by a Proto-Indo-European people, a folk, and so the question was, where did these people live?
And where did Cassiner place the Aryan homeland?
For him, the homeland was in Germany. Every nation seeks some past, some heritage, some legitimacy, and if you're having a revolution, you have to have a myth. We are the true voice. We are bringing you back your true deep past, which has been overlooked in subsequent generations.
Aryans, a superior race. But there were those who went further. For them, the Germans were a chosen people whose origins were divine.
The moon we see now is not the first moon. In the time before time, there were 3 other moons. And 3 times, those moons crashed into Earth, destroying the life and civilization that had been built there. In between the destruction of the 3rd moon and the coming of the 4th moon, which is our moon, a tall, blonde, blue-eyed race lived on the island called Atlantis. They were lofty, educated artists as well as incomparable warriors. And they were brave, for only the brave could have survived the floods and the ice age that followed the destruction of the 3rd moon. The people of Atlantis were the source of all art and science, and they were the ancestors of the Germans.
Dreams like these had long been commonplace amongst German nationalists. But now the Nazis ruled Germany, they began to yoke the power of myth to their totalitarian machine. Among the Nazi chiefs, it was Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, who most systematically used the opportunities of power to turn his fantasy version of history into reality. Here in Wewelsburg, on the edge of the Teutoburger forest, Himmler found what he was looking for. Wewelsburg Castle was to be the centre of a new order of knights, a new aristocracy of blood and soil. A Camelot with the SS commanders as Knights of the Round Table. Inside, rooms were dedicated to figures of Nordic history and mythology. Himmler's own room was dedicated to King Heinrich I, the founder of the First Reich. There was a room for King Arthur, another for the Holy Grail. Never forget, Himmler told the SS, we are a knightly order from which we cannot withdraw, to which we are recruited by blood.
Also der hat einen Weitblick gehabt, Himmler, ne? Und in diesem Weitblick ist der Webersburg entstanden. Die SS ist die wirklich absolute Elite von alles, was gewesen ist. Heute ist man kriminell etc., aber die Welt will umgeschaltet werden. Aber reiner und intensiver und höheres Gut ist nicht da wie die SS. Und Gott sei Dank ist Webersburg noch etwas da. Und Gott sei Dank sind noch einige Leute, die etwas wissen über die Weber und auch den ganzen, das Gedankengut.
What was Himmler hoping to create then in getting hold of the castle here?
Yeah, he wanted to create a focus point of all the aspirations he had towards religion, towards science, forming a new policy and things like that. It was the center of all these ideas, not of the practice, but of the ideas. To create a new Aryan person, a new Aryan society based on Aryan human beings, you have to change biology and you have to change the mind, the thinking of the people. And one important part of the conception of the world in the mind is religion.
Da war damals auch eine große Schlacht.
Ja, und in dem großen Wald dort liegen die Externsteine.
Ist das nicht das berühmte Sonnenheiligtum der Germanen?
Ja, ganz da oben wurde die Sommersonnenwende gefeiert.
Himmler believed that he was living in the era of the final disintegration of Christianity. It was time to restore the Externsteine to its place as the Teutonic Mecca, the heart of true Germanic religion. Archaeologists were given the task of proving its pagan origins. They found nothing, but few would speak out against the chief of the Gestapo. Meanwhile, from the stranger fringes of German life, others moved closer to the centre of power. One close advisor to Himmler was Karl Maria Willigut, an Austrian mystic who claimed descent from a long line of ancient German sages. Willigut had few obvious qualifications for the SS. He was a womanizer, he liked the bottle, and had spent a considerable time in a Salzburg lunatic asylum. Willigut was a direct link to the mystical German thinking of the 19th century. His claims to speak to the people of the past and to decipher their runes, the symbolic alphabet of the ancient Germans, made a deep impression on Himmler and his circle.
Für mich war das ein unglaublicher Mensch. Also ich war hoch interessiert an allem, was er erzählte, auch wenn ich natürlich manches hätte ja manches erzählen können, nicht? Aber es hat sich eben immer wieder durch andere Seiten bestätigt, was er sagte. Und das hat mich natürlich fasziniert, auch das, was er überhaupt erzählte.
With a new name, Weistor, Willigut was made a brigade Führer in the SS and spearheaded Himmler's attempt to form a new Germanic religion. He produced a 10-point manifesto for the elimination of Christianity from German life. It ended, characteristically, with his own runic sign.
Ja, das ist unsere alte Tradition, das ist unsere Herkunft. Die kann man doch nicht einfach wegschieben. Wir sind ja überdeckt gewesen von der christlich-jüdischen Religion und Tradition. Ja? Und die wollten die alte Tradition, die uns entsprach, wieder rausholen. Nicht? Das ist ganz klar.
For Himmler, many of the most sacred symbols of the Christian religion had been stolen by the Church from the ancient Aryans. He now set about restoring them to their rightful place in German tradition. The most powerful symbol of all was the Holy Grail, and Otto Rahn was Germany's leading authority on the Holy Grail. Now Himmler brought him into the SS.
One of the things one notices walking around the museum